Welcome to the Dad Task Force. As always, I am Brad and my co-host, Davon, and it's good to have you back. I know last week we couldn't match schedules and things were busy, and
last
I
week
just
was
pumped
crazy.
something out to keep numbers like consistent. So
Yeah.
it wasn't terribly great. It just was what it was. So catch me up. What have you been up to?
Softball's quieted down a bit. Now we're into volleyball season. Lots of other stuff, just catching up on, work and everything like that. So,
Yeah.
what about you?
Just busy for whatever reason. Like everybody wants everything all at once at the same time. So no complaints, just busyness. Got some things in the works that we'll, see how they unfold and plan out.
Yeah.
So it is currently November 13th. So happy Veterans Day belated to all of our active duty.
Yes. Thank you.
Former service members, not active duty. I went to the number 3 school today for career day and talked about military, talked about law enforcement, talked about training, video production stuff.
Yeah.
And he comes home, he's like, Dad, they said that you were the most fun that we've had, but you're scary. Everybody's afraid of you because of the way you look, not because of what you said, but just the way you look. So that's
Could be a compliment. Could be.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't necessarily feel one way or the other about it. So we were chatting this morning, and you suggested that we discuss building bonds with kids during the bad seasons, meaning, fall and winter.
Yeah.
So what did you mean by that?
As like we're right now in Idaho in this stage where the weather is going from like pretty nice to in a couple weeks it's just going to be not nice outside.
Yeah, it's gonna be gross.
And so I think it's easy like for kids to come inside and just be on like screens all day.
Yeah.
And then when they're on a screen, it's like they're not demanding your attention as a parent. So then it's easy for you to just not engage. And then what happens is winter and goes by, and then you're into spring, and the beginning of spring is still kind of crappy. And you haven't really talked to your kid for 4 months.
So what do you do at your house to overcome that?
Our house is a little maybe different than some other ones. We put like a batting cage in our garage.
Okay.
And so we are like out in the garage hitting balls, or like Kai can throw footballs into the net, and like we're just out there like doing stuff that's not screen time.
Okay.
They also just recently got into like painting and coloring, and so I am a slightly competitive individual. So we maybe had a coloring competition, but just anything that's like involving other people and not just them sitting there.
So when you say coloring competition, what is the grading rubric for that?
Ooh, I don't know. So we had a kids coloring competition, and then we had an adults coloring competition, and the parents ranked the kids coloring relative to their age, because obviously my 6-year-old's not coloring like my 9-year-old. And then the kids graded the parents, and they were not nice.
Yeah.
And I was very proud of my coloring job.
Did you win?
I did not win.
Well.
So
Welcome to the Dad Task Force, where we allow losers to be co-hosts. We're very competitive too. Here's a good question for you, because this comes up fairly often at this time of year. Is it too early to put up Christmas lights?
I've got a pretty hard rule around the 15th.
Also this weekend?
This weekend they can go up. Now, you guys have the cool lights.
Those are new, but just for what it's worth, those are year-round lights. They
Right.
they become, 4th of July lights, St. Patrick's Day, whatever, birthdays,
Exactly.
BSU games, you name it. But before the light, those went up. The garland, the tree, and the stockings were also up.
Oh, they are?
You didn't even walk into the house.
I didn't
You just
even
walked
go
in
into
and
the
came to
living room.
studio. Like, I don't know if you can see through.
Oh, right there in front of my face when you walk in. I didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
So
gave up on the hard rule. I just got tired of fighting it.
it's a hard hill to die on.
Yeah. And if I'm going to plant my flag, I want to have a valid reason to plant my flag. And I don't want to is never a good enough reason.
Yeah. Last year I did lose the battle of the lights, but we compromised. And the Christmas tree just couldn't go up yet until the 15th.
Okay.
So lights went up like a couple days after Halloween, I'm sad to say.
Okay.
But we didn't put up the tree until the 15th.
I don't hate that. Don't hate it. So, do your kids play winter sports?
They play volleyball and basketball.
Okay.
So
that kind of helps with, like, you still get to mentor and coach.
I am not coaching those sports.
Oh, okay.
No kids want me to coach either of those. My wife coaches volleyball, and we let other people coach them in basketball. So it is very difficult to not let my coach out though. Like I'm in the stands, like really wringing my hands together. So
Sarah, we have to make a decision. Like Garrett wants to play spring ball, but it's time to sign up for spring ball. And then they gotta, and we have to do then there's tryouts, and then there's coach selection. It's like, I like coaching him, but I don't want to go through a process
to be the coach,
to just exhaust my free time
yeah,
and bang my head against the wall because other parents are like, my kid's special.
Yeah, that makes. I mean, yeah, you're not just getting to coach your kid; you got to coach all the kids. Yeah,
Which is fine. I don't mind the coaching aspect of it, but I don't want to have to fight for a volunteer position.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's like, look, if I sign up to coach, I'll coach.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me that I've got to compete to volunteer, you're out of your mind.
Right.
I've got no desire to do that. Mostly just because I'm a better manager than a coach, right? You're just telling people when to stop doing stupid stuff and keep things in line.
Yeah. Which works if you could interview as a staff.
No.
Like you come in as a manager, you got a couple coaches, and
Yeah.
that's just the way it rolls.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that. So I asked you today, because I kind of wanted to take this thing that we're doing, and it's not super huge. It's not big at all. So I feel like we're in a good spot where we can test different theories and ideas when it comes to this whole podcasting. We're not celebrities. We didn't go viral on some Instagram reel and now have millions of dollars to do something. We're not comedians. We're just regular people that have regular people jobs,
Right.
that see a need in the world, and we're trying to fill that need. But as I sit back and I listen to after it goes out, I listen to it just to see how it sounds, to make sure there aren't any gaping holes or big errors. I ask myself, what am I listening to and why?
Ooh, yeah.
So I'm on a kick right now about storytelling. And I've always been on a storytelling kick. I've always, even as a hostage negotiator, I always thought that if you can develop a lot of rapport through storytelling to where somebody is drawn into what you're saying. So I started looking at the science behind telling stories, and more so the purpose of the story. And there's a number of different types of stories. There's stories, if you're in a business, that your customer tells about how your product did, amazing things.
Yeah.
There's the founder's story. There's a guy that we're working with on the side that has an incredible founder's story about why he's doing what he's doing. And as soon as you hear it, you're like,
wow,
I need to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Then you have like a purpose story where you had a hardship, you were living a life like this, and then you had a hardship, and then you overcame it, and now you have a new normal, and that's your purpose. And then you have like your value, why your product or whatever brings value to the consumer. And so, when we were texting back and forth, I suggested that we try storytelling from the perspective of a father. And I didn't really give you a lot of like lead time to develop and come up with something. So I'll do my best to try to navigate the conversation. But do you have a story that encapsulates why fatherhood is so important?
Ooh, do I? Actually,
this episode is brought to you by StreamKits at StreamKits.com. If you're into content creation, whether you're a streamer, a podcaster, an influencer, or you have a more traditional production need for your content, StreamKits has you covered. From the solo IRL backpack man on the street interview kit, all the way up to a more studio quality 4-camera, 4-audio, stable mount system, they have what you're looking for. Look, in the last year, I filmed plenty of training content for some pretty big clients, and what I started off with was my phone. Then I upgraded to a fancy DSLR. But I had to buy tripods, I had to buy lenses, I had to buy audio interfaces and microphones. And as the camera upgrade or the phone upgrades, now I've got to buy different interfaces so that audio continues to work. And it just keeps draining the bank account for equipment just to put the content out. Now, with StreamKits, you get everything that you need in every package. And you get a camera, you get a couple of lenses, you get the mounting equipment, you get the audio interface, unless you choose not to get the audio interface, and you get high quality production level equipment that's super affordable to allow you to start streaming your content today. Now let's just put it into perspective. The most expensive kit on their website is 4 cameras, 4 microphones, 4 headsets, all of the interface stuff that all comes together and comes out one USB cord into your computer. $4,199. Go to Amazon and get a dual camera entry-level streaming setup. You're gonna look at about $4,500. Do the math. And it gets better. If you want a 3-camera entry-level broadcasting system for your production quality, $15,000. But StreamKits is a third of that price with 4 cameras, 4 microphones, 4 headsets, all the stuff you need to put it together to make it look cool and then get you on the road to streaming today. Those other systems are great. They probably work really well, but you have to have a learning curve to understand how to use the camera, how to set it up, how to manage lighting, how to manage the data transfer, how to get everything to interoperate and connect so that it shows up on your computer. That takes time. The more time it takes to learn these things, the less time you have to actually put your content out, which then is affecting your bottom line because now you're not making money on your content because you're stuck at the very beginning trying to get ready to run the race. StreamKit systems offer a simple plug-and-play design that shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to put together and get going. And with discount code TASKFORCE15, you get an additional 15% off of production quality equipment that's so easy to use because it's plug-and-play that you can start sharing your content with the rest of us right now. So go to StreamKits.com and enter TASKFORCE15 at checkout.
I don't know the full story behind this, but it did. it was just a situation I came across Monday.
Okay.
And it did kind of get me thinking, like whether or not this kid had like a strong father in their household.
Okay.
So we're going to a school like presentation or like Veterans Day kind of thing, and we're walking into the gym. Well, it's actually at this point it's just me. Erica's like way ahead of me because it was cold and I let them out of the car. But I'm walking and first I see this kid like going back and forth between a car that his mom is in, and it just doesn't look right. Like something weird is going on for sure. And they're like arguing as you get closer, but it's nothing like crazy. And then I get like 10, 20 yards past the car and I hear this kid start yelling.
Okay.
And if you're 9 years old, plug your ears. He is like, "God damn it, Mom, fuck you." And this kid is like 8 years old.
I'm going to have to add some beeps.
Yeah. And I'm just like, wow, like I really heavily considered going all the way back there, but I had Nigel and he's 8 months old and it was 40 degrees outside.
Well, maybe if you whoop that kid's ass in front of your kid, you'd know better.
Maybe he knows better. But I like wanted to go back and be like, dude, like no way do you talk to your mom like that. And then as this Veterans Day show is going on, like it's just all in my head. And I'm like, I wonder, one, if that kid's got a dad at home.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, like that's probably why he thinks it's okay to talk to his mom like that. If he does, there's a good chance he hears somebody talking like that at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which means that he's got a male in his house, but he's not got a father.
Right.
In his house. And then it just piled on to like a million things. And I was like, man, like if one, I feel for that mom, like that's got to be hard for her. But two, like what is the future for that kid if she can't control him when he's 8, you know? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at that age, if that's the attitude that she's getting from him, then she's got a long road ahead of her because that kid's got to be an asshole all the way up until the time he goes to jail the first time.
Yeah.
Not to be reductive, but if you're 8 years old and you're saying that kind of stuff to your mom, then you don't respect your mother. And, you know, for what it's worth, most sons have a very deep respect for their mom.
Oh, yeah.
Unless there's some other kind of like mitigating circumstance. So to be so disrespectful to the one person that you genuinely have like this connection to means that you have, and I'm not speaking, look, I'm not a psychiatrist. I can say whatever I want. This is
our opinion.
This is our opinion. Yeah. So you don't, if you don't have the common decency to respect your mother at 8, then you probably don't respect anybody or anything.
Yeah.
Let alone yourself. And the sad thing is that probably has more to do with his self-worth.
Yeah.
You know, you look at it in the terms of bullying, and the kid that's bullied, you genuinely have to make sure that kid's okay. But then you also have to go to the bully and find out what the problem is.
Right.
This isn't the story I was going to tell, but there was a kid that was getting into fights in high school, and I worked as an SRO, and didn't have a dad. Mom worked, 18 hours a day. Never saw an adult figure outside of the school building, and he would just beat the brakes off of anybody that looked at him funny. And if you're an SRO or a teacher or anybody out there and you have the opportunity to pour into somebody like this, we took the time not to punish that, but to get to the root of the problem. And what we saw is there were times where we would stumble, but we would come back. And the distance between the stumblings got longer and longer and longer. And he graduated, got to the point where he wasn't beating up people for looking at it. He started to be able to regulate his feelings and his his emotions and his reactions. And it's because he started to see value in his own self.
Right.
And I think as a young man, that's very important because, especially in a society that doesn't necessarily love the idea of masculinity, it's hard to be a young man to grow up to be a good man because you're constantly told that you're toxic or you're misogynistic or you're sexist because you are trying to have a masculine role in society.
Right.
I think that it's worth saying that true, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for you because I don't want you to have to answer to anything that I'm about to say, but the reality is this. True feminism empowers a woman to be a woman. It does not mean that that woman is equal in every aspect to a man. They're the same, but different, and rightfully so, because there's things that a woman can do that a man cannot do.
Right.
And it's having those differences that makes a woman and has that feminine component to it, not the...
Yeah.
And being able to explore what that means as a young man to like grow up like, oh, you know what? I want to hold a door for you. I don't want you to be vulnerable. I want to be a protector. I want to be a provider. But to shit on that and say, no, you can't because that's toxic. I can do it myself.
Nobody's saying you can't. Like, yeah, it's like the whole, like, you go to dinner with a woman for the first time, or maybe the second or third time you're dating, whatever.
Bro, it's been over 20 years.
Yeah. Not you. But a man goes to dinner with a woman and he like wants to pay for the meal and she like absolutely won't let him. Like, that's not toxic masculinity because he wants to like pay for your dinner.
No, that's just shit.
That's just chivalry.
Chivalry,
and,
to some component.
In no way is he saying you can't pay for your own meal. It's just that it is like, I don't know. I was raised to pay for the meal, and it's not like I'm belittling a woman.
Break that down, you know. This woman said yes to you taking her out and representing you in some capacity, and paying for dinner as a thank you for like saying yes to giving me an opportunity to prove my value and worth to you as a man, because that's the whole point of dating,
right?
Is to do I add value to your life to the point you'd want to be a partner?
Good point. Yeah.
Now, I was 17 years old, and I went out with this girl I was working with. It wasn't that good. She was a freaking capital B.
Oh, like a nightmare.
From the word go.
Yeah.
Just the word go. But she also made it a double date, and so her friend was there, and so I had to have a guy show up for her friend. And finally I was like, you know what? And I apologize for nothing. I just left. Homie took both of the girls out to dinner. I don't know who paid. Didn't ask. Didn't care. Like, she was, and she called, why did you? I was like, because you're being such an awful human being.
Yeah.
You were rude to people. You were unkind. You were demanding. Like, I don't know who told you that's how you're supposed to treat people.
Yeah.
I've come a long ways, but
it's the worst when you like think it's gonna. You go into a date. You wouldn't ask somebody to go on a date if you thought it was gonna be a nightmare, and you get there and it's just like, my God, you are ugly. Not in like a physical sense.
Yeah. I know you're not
asking out ugly girls, but
you have a ugly soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be an uggo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clip that. Make that my text.
Don't be an uggo.
Alert. Don't be an uggo. So I wanted to That's interesting. I do think that kid probably needs his ass whipped though, by an uncle or somebody to.
Oh yeah, I did tell, like, we told the story, or I told the story when we were driving home, and I was like, just so any of you guys know, you wouldn't finish the F word.
Oh,
Like,
no.
no.
Have you seen there's a video, I haven't seen it for a while, but it's moms and sons conspiring against the dad, to where the mom tells the boy to do something,
yeah.
and he's like, "Why don't you shut up?" Whatever. And you just see the belt go
Yeah.
like a sword, like, here it comes. What'd you say?
Yeah. What'd you say to your mom?
And it's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Sorry, like,
You're gonna respect your.
you're gonna respect your mom.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna challenge me, but you're gonna respect her.
Yeah.
And eventually, I tell Garrett this, like, one day, I'll be in a hospital bed, and you'll be able to beat me up. But until I'm in that bed, you better pack a lunch,
Right.
and I'm not gonna play fair.
Yeah.
So,
That's
trying to establish that early on. So here's what, like, I think that it's important. We talked a little bit about it initially when we first started this, like, the purpose behind this. And so I don't usually tell this story very often because it's a heavy story. But I think it merits why we're doing this. And it also lends itself to, the Tactical Talker. Because I currently work as a director for a training company. I teach other people how to do things, right? As a cop, I was one of the lead trainers for negotiations and crisis intervention. I helped train canines.
Mm-hmm.
I helped in the Army. I trained my subordinates on how to do the job, how to do, like, basic soldiering stuff. Training matters, right? Because you, in a time of crisis, you only are, like, it's bullshit if you believe that you rise to the occasion. The statistic is like 3% of people are able to rise above their highest level of training.
Mm-hmm.
You fall back to what you're most comfortable with,
Right.
given the circumstances. So, my background, I was in the Army for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I took a lot of the medic stuff. I wasn't CLS certified, but I knew first aid, I knew CPR, I knew the basics.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the police academy. I took the first aid class. I passed. CPR certified. I did the annual updates where they make you do CPR and Heimlich and chest compressions and all of the things, AEDs, you name it, you had to do it. And then, so Garrett is my youngest, and I think he was about 13 months old, and 13 or 14 months old. Like, he was just barely over a year. And I worked midnights, and so I was getting up around like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, about the same time the missus was getting home.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes in the house and pulls in the garage. She's like, "Hey, can you grab the baby and give him some Tylenol? He doesn't feel well." They're at the park. She's like, "He's got a fever." I said, "Yeah." So I come downstairs, I pick him up, take him out of the car seat, bring him upstairs, and he's hot. He's got clearly got fever.
Hot. Yeah.
But it's not just that. It's something else. Like, there's something, and I didn't know really what it was in that moment. But what I noticed was that it wasn't right. And I'm like, I think that there's something else happening. So I'm yelling down the hallway, and I grab some ice and I try to put it on his chest, and it's just like evaporating.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, I can start to see his body lock up, and he starts going into this super intense seizure. None of my other kids have ever had a seizure.
Right.
You know, I've dealt with other people's crises. I've dealt with other people's stuff in the moment, but I've never had this happen in my own house, in my own hands.
It's different
my
when
own
it's
child.
yours. Yeah.
So I call out to her. I'm like, he's having a seizure. Call 911. I have the girls go in the backyard. They take the dog with them because I was a canine handler. So the dog was, you know,
He's on edge.
Kind of gets aggressive when he hears sirens. Open the front door. And the whole time he's just locked up and he's starting to turn colors and he's like dying in my arms. Paramedics come in. They start working on him. And look, I worked around first responders at this point for long enough to know when things were status quo and when things were not.
Right.
And this was one of those instances where it was not. We get him, they throw him in the ambulance, and the whole time I'm like, this freaking guy is going the long way to the hospital. And I'm like, I'm just like, I'm pissed. I'm beside myself. Amber's beside herself. She's in tears. Our neighbors are following us in the car so that we'd have a ride home. Like, it was just one of those, another neighbor's like, I've got the girls, don't worry about it. Like, it was a great experience as far as community goes. We get to the hospital, and this dude is seizing for a period of like 3 to 4 hours. And they signed this social worker, which is never a good sign.
Right.
And they come out and they're like, hey, you know, the doctors are working really hard. We need to go and start that conversation, which is basically the conversation that they're telling you that your kid's about to die.
Like, your kid might not come back out.
They ain't coming out of this. And so you need to prepare whatever you need to prepare for that. And we're like, oh my gosh. Amber drops to her knees and starts praying in the middle of the floor of the ER in this like room where we're at. And eventually they dope him up enough to where it calms his body down. They throw him in a super ambo, take him to Oakland, to Children's Hospital, to where we spend the next like week. We do a lot of follow-up. They cannot replicate the issue. They don't know what the problem is. We go to neurologists. We go to everybody that is a super specialist in seizures and children's and pediatrics and
Can't explain it.
Cannot explain it. And then this happens 3 more times. Once at Children's Hospital in Oakland, in the car when Amber is driving, and Lily magically unlocked Amber's phone and called me. It was like 1:00 in the afternoon, and I was asleep. And she's like, "We're on this side of the road." That's all she could say because she was, I think she's probably 4, maybe 5. And so, all of this to be said, when your child is dying in front of you, and you have made a career solving other people's problems similar to that, you feel like you're a complete and total failure.
Right.
And now this isn't about me. He's fine. Come to find out, his ears weren't draining, and every time you get an ear infection, it would cause a seizure, and they'd just be complex. And so a little dilatant in the beehole would solve it, and then they put tubes in his ears. Never had a problem. He had 0 neurological effects afterwards. It's truly, truly like a blessing from God on this one. But the whole point of this is that I have never wanted people to be unprepared and ill-equipped to handle life, because life comes at us at different speeds, unexpectedly, all at once,
Yeah.
or not at all. So when I started the tacticaltalker.com, the purpose of that was so that people had a place to go to learn how to manage life. That's the whole purpose of the program. Dadcom is because fatherlessness is such a huge and prevalent problem in today's American culture that it leads to school shootings, it leads to suicide, it leads to incarceration, it leads to drug use and alcohol abuse, it leads to violence in the home and in the street. If we can equip dads to be better fathers and manage their own self, as well as pour into their kids, what we have is a society that our kids get to grow up in safely.
100%.
When we do other programs that we're going to launch throughout the next year with finances, with, I'm talking to a rancher right now, which hopefully that'll turn into like training about meat. Just like the food that we eat has to be better than what it is because it's garbage.
Right.
If you're a hunter, like I know a lot of guys that moved to Idaho from California, they're like, oh, I want to hunt. And they don't know what the hell they're doing.
What happens after you shoot it?
Okay.
If you even get to shoot it.
Here's your gun. Here's your tag. You shoot that thing over there. Now what?
Yeah.
Are you going to try to drag that elk
drag
out by
400
yourself?
pounds out.
No, you need to know how to field dress it. You need to know how to quarter it. You need to know how to pack it out.
Yeah.
Go on YouTube. You're not going to find great information. You're going to see people trying to sell you the butthole plug that you shove into the sphincter and then you twist it up and it yanks the entrails out and then it makes it a clean, like, come on.
Yeah.
Maybe, but that's not. Does it help get the skin off? Does it tell me how to butcher it? Because I don't know if you know this, butchers are really expensive.
Yes.
So that's the whole point of this. So the reason that I started the Tactical Talker and the whole reason that I look, when I say this, I really, really mean this. I begged Dave on for weeks before we ever started recording to do this project because my kids love being at his house. And he's doing something correct and doing something right, and that matters. So how do we take what you're doing in your house, what's happening here and in other successful houses, and then we replicate that in a way that is understandable by the people that are struggling in a non-judgmental way,
right,
where they can get some resources, they can get some help, and at the end of the day, they thrive.
Yeah.
Because I don't want somebody to be standing there with their kid in the middle of the floor, seizing out of control, and you're helpless.
Yeah. Nobody wants that for anybody.
No. I don't know if you knew this, but you know why they have people boil water when a woman's going into labor?
No.
To give them something to do and then get them the hell out of the room.
Smart. Yeah.
Does absolutely nothing for anybody. Just go boil water.
Yeah. Just go boil some water. We'll see you in 10 minutes.
So this is why this matters.
Right.
And this is why it's an investment into people that are doing good things well, so that maybe you can generate some passive income because your time is valuable. But at the same time, you're equipping somebody to go out and do something very specific in a way that will have a generational lasting impact.
Heck yeah.
So that's the whole reason that we do this. And the Tactical Talker comes from, as a negotiator, the SWAT guys would be like, well, you're the Tactical Talker, go. Like, it's a strategic communication style. So I've adopted that, coined it, and it's mine now. So
there we go.
Suck it. But to all of that, for what it's said, I think storytelling matters because people can relate to stories, and they've been in situations where they're like, I have no idea what to do next.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's been in a, like, what now? situation.
Just to change the tone a little bit, I heard this recently. Actually, I heard it last week when I went to Utah to, not that kind of young, but I went to Utah for to pick up beef for the freezer. And there was nothing to do but listen to podcasts, and I was already caught up on the stuff I normally listen to, so I just
Went out there,
played
and
podcast
pulled a wild
roulette.
card.
Yeah. Fell into the Teddy Roosevelt rabbit hole.
Oh man.
Horrible father.
Oh yeah.
Horrible father. His wife died with his first child. It was a girl. Left for 3 years. Went to the Dakotas to be a cowboy.
It's crazy how common that was.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, well, see you guys if you're still alive in 5 years.
Great leader though. Otherwise, right?
Yeah.
You know, he paid for specialized uniforms for the Rough Riders to go and do what they did, and very successful. You know, as a soldier, very successful as a leader, as a police commissioner. He banned throwing bananas on the ground because they were having a real problem in New York with people slipping on banana peels and cracking their head open and dying.
Crazy.
Avid hunter, avid outdoorsman.
Yeah.
This is how the story goes. I didn't fact check. I didn't read it. It's a good enough story to keep going. I don't need to do anything else with it. He goes to Louisiana to hunt bear. I didn't know bears existed in Louisiana, but they did. And I've been to Louisiana. I just thought there was all alligators and crawfish. Did not see or kill a bear. And so the guide was like, well, I don't want to disappoint this man. So they, in the controlled setting, they tied a bear up to a tree and like, there you go.
Yeah.
And he said, I will not shoot that bear. And all of the political tabloids started making fun of him for it. And wouldn't you know it, that the next thing on the shelf that year for Christmas were little stuffed plush bears that were called Teddy.
Teddy bears. Yeah.
As it was a jab, I guess, but one of probably the most successful child's toys of all time.
Yeah.
All because he had the honor to not kill something that was not in a position to be killed.
Yeah.
He was a very avid outdoorsman. Like he had he had a badger, he had a bear, and a bunch of other weird animals at the White House.
Yeah.
So,
well, you take hunter's ed, it's like, it's in there. Like, you shouldn't kill something you didn't have to actually hunt.
yeah, for sure.
Like, so.
And you know, we talked about this with, Garrett asked me. It'll be interesting when Kai gets old enough and asks you this. And I assume everybody hears it at some point. He says, do you want to be president? And it's like, no, please, no, never. Well, he said, do you think I'd make a good president? And it's like, I don't know. It's like, you're 11. I don't know the kind of man you're going to be.
Yeah.
Like, you have a lot of life ahead of you to make decisions, but a lot of politicians, they are fallible. They make mistakes. People catch that mistake and hold it over their head, and it deteriorates their integrity. And now, once you lose your integrity, it's really hard to get that back.
Yeah.
So it's,
yeah. You play in the dirt, you get muddy. So.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So and integrity goes a long ways. And if, as a father, you can encourage your child to have integrity, then by all means, push. Character matters.
Exactly. Integrity is like the biggest thing in our house.
The last thing you can do is stand on your word.
Yeah.
Once that's gone, you tend to fall over.
Yeah.
It's been a couple weeks since you've had to throw a shout out or a commendation to anybody for being a badass dad. What do you got?
Yeah, this one, it's actually timely because it's Veterans Day just passed. My grandpa was like a World War II vet, just total badass of a human being. I think it's actually where I get like my sense of like mentoring other people's kids. Like every kid in our neighborhood could like look at my grandpa like it was their grandpa.
That's great.
And I think like, I don't know, I think I've told this part of the story before, but I worked for my grandpa. It was like my first job. He instilled so much hard work and just actually integrity in me. If you're going to do something, you better do it right. And if you mess up, don't lie, don't hide it, don't lie about it. So that's who I want to give the shout out to this week.
Cool. I love it. I'm going to double down as well. My great uncle died this week.
I'm sorry.
He was last week on Friday. Another military veteran. I didn't realize, I read the eulogy last night. His funeral was yesterday. And he did a lot of cool stuff that he never talked about. When you were with him, it was you. It wasn't about what I've done. It was just like, he was a crafty man. He was very, I always thought he was a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
No, he did some wild jobs. Very good at what he did, but very good character of a man, and
that's awesome.
So that's how I get the shout out to this week. Look, we want to grow this project. It's a lot of effort and work to find time to come in and sit down and have conversations and come up with things to talk about, because we're not a topical news conversation type of thing. I mean, if something pops off, then we will, but otherwise we just talk about life. And so it does a lot of good. If you're on Spotify, you just click the rating and you don't have to do anything. If you're on Apple, it helps if you hit the stars and write a review, because it causes it to lock in. But what that ultimately does is it bumps the program up in the algorithm. That gets more ears to listen to it, and the more people listen to it, hopefully, the more kids have dads that are being equipped.
Yes.
Because look, we all know ain't nobody giving us a book when we go to leave the hospital on how to. Matter of fact, most of them make you call the cops and have them make sure that your car seat's in correctly.
Yeah, the fire department won't do it,
because if they don't trust you to install a car seat, but they entrust you to raise the child.
To raise the child for the next 18 years. So.
And then some.
Yeah.
Then some. So that's the big push. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
This is also brought to you by thetacticaltalker.com. And after listening to today's episode, maybe you have a better understanding and appreciation for what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. But I'm feeling generous. So by the time this goes out, I will add a promo code to DADCOM21. We'll call it Equipped, EQIPPED. And you know what? I'll give you 10% off the course for the holiday season, because Thanksgiving's around the corner, and I know what kind of conversations are going to happen around the table. You got 2 weeks, so you'll be well into the mix if you start right now. That's Equipped for 10% off at DADCOM on thetacticaltalker.com. So there you go. That's it. I got nothing else to say.